shorts. Couple more weeks.
Be here all the time.
Probably wear it.
Change this that way. Always. Yeah. Oh, I read this because I have on sweatshirts and shorts, you know. It didn't have to make sense. They're young. They're young. Well. No. Oh, they must have got, they got my clothes. I'm hoping they again. I haven't been one this year. This year? Where's it gonna be down there? No, it's gonna be at Northwest Whitfield, which is, it's like a tunnel here, so it's a lot closer. And it's probably gonna be their maybe Texas game this year, in the region. Yeah. Wow. Is that soccer? Football. Patterson. Yeah, I remember that. Bible study. Some big stuff. Hello, ladies. I'm in there. And we play.
Is she, is that her?
I'm getting that time. Yeah. No, it's where her, yeah, he was doing on a field trip Monday to the aquarium. But now I had my boy already in a wheelchair and I had two other ones. And of course they wanted to say whatever. But so my feet
Very good job.
are 2.5 hours. I had to walk.
Another.
Did you get dessert? Yeah, I was at apple pearls, the dirt floor. You want anything else? No.
Sometimes.
When you thank Sam's. You can thank Sam's Club. Yeah, I think it's cute. You can't make something like that.
got troubles coming.
I can't make it that. No, it's fine. You made it. Yeah.
What trouble?
Sir, what if she don't know her path? Yeah, that's what Andrew said. Yeah, that's what I said, because of where it's hurting at.
What's going on?
I'll let you see. Surely will figure it out. But yeah, I've had that where I've had them. Most things.
Yeah, that cooking
I
there.
was wondering, you know, I never had a kid this time or anything, but with, dog or they really hurt somewhere else. When you had Martha, now, did it hurt you in your back? No. Like right here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I didn't see you, this whole patience thing. Or. I learned.
Mama.
She got shot in her knee and, so. And then Janet had been Billy in this week. All he does is like today, you know, Jill's been telling me that today's her husband's birthday. So thank you. Do whatever that's in the way up here in Cleveland. I think I do. That's 5. Yeah, that's dark.
You missed going out
I've
with
been putting
her.
up with her for as long as you are old. How old are you?
1080 tomorrow is possibility.
53 years.
Hire John on things stuff like that.
After you were born, I had to put up with you.
Yeah. I'm glad somebody put that in like that. More often you have workers that would.
It was worth it.
You know, things like this. It's opening some doors.
Oh, my
We're
goodness.
talking about all that, me and mother, talking about that, all that, the other day. Wait to see what the Lord does. All we
Oh,
know.
goodness.
And if he doesn't want it,
Good make off good. I just baked them. They were, the dough was like Pillsbury on wool. Cookie sheets. I mean, you say you put them on a cookie sheet and then all this stuff. And they were really good. They wanted a dozen for a dollar, or no, three for a dollar. I got 3 dozen things for a dollar. I said, yeah. Wrinkle, downtown Ringles. And then they got one on 58, but 58 isn't as nice as one on Ringles. But I stopped there every once, they got, sometimes they have.
Yeah, they do, that little grocery store down there. What did you get for $3?
The cinnamon cookies that I made, you don't like cinnamon, but the cinnamon cookies. And they had some chocolate raspberry too, but I didn't, it's a ministry cinnamon, but they were, you know, little Pillsbury thing about this big, but it said free for $1. I take. You can't buy a mix or anything, you know, you gotta have your eggs, you get butter and I was excited.
We can't make nothing for $1.
I know. And that was 3 water, 3 of them. It was 3 dozen. 3 dozen. 3 dozen. So I said,
That's fun. Good. Already. Hold up.
but you know, if you don't get them, then you can go back the next day and leave. Right. Yeah, that's what it is. Once they're on, they're gone.
Your time's coming.
Things changed there, but I like it up in there.
What?
And it was a stover.
Me and her husband do
And
it.
it was 11 million.
Yeah. I mean, touch it.
What? Right. I have to, we'll see. So I. We were there. Yeah, around. It was frozen.
Bill Baker actually.
I don't think I ever had anything like that.
Not, maybe not. I worked for a chiropractor, really difficult, for a couple of years.
Who'd you work for? Pam? Who did what chiropractic?
Awards chiropractic, got me sprayers.
Ward?
Awards. And well, that's what we used to be, and that's in the area, her there.
And he's praying to teach it.
We're gonna praise for me. No. Back in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking to her.
I told you to do the chiropractic.
Ever heard of back down? But, you know, I know it her for years or more.
Here we go. All right, it is 6:30 on Wednesday, October the 8th, 2025. I don't know if Larry and Barbara and Christopher are on tonight, but I do have a diet sun drop. It's on sale at the Food City.
I'm sure would be good to see that.
Well, they don't get on this, they get on the, which one doesn't come up here? Yeah, they get on YouTube and you don't see them up here, but if Larry and Barbara and Christopher are on, I do have diet sun drop tonight. They're on sale at the Food City. Here are our most recent updates or requests here on this list. Jack Harris, who is here with us tonight. Good to see Jack. I've missed him for a couple of Wednesdays and he's gonna go to the doctor on Monday when Rhonda gets back again from wherever she is on vacation. It's some island off the coast of Georgia. So I'm thinking maybe St. Simon's.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's going to the doctor on Monday. He's still having lower back pain, but it's good he's able to get here tonight. Perry James, Mark and Diane got Perry back to his house today. He did have to have that blood transfusion because his blood count kept dropping down. He's back at his house today. And Charlie was at the hospice center down Blackford Street, and he's supposed to be discharged soon. And pray for Charlie and Wanda with her dementia. And Charlie has been diagnosed with dementia also. Both of them need 24/7 care. So need to pray for Randy with the decisions and all that. For Charlie and Wanda. And then remember Michelle Oates' brother-in-law, JC, out in California, I believe.
I have an update on that.
Okay.
Michelle wasn't able to be here tonight.
Why? Because it's Rob's birthday.
Yeah. Hadley's not feeling well, so she said, remember her. They
Okay.
were gonna come, but she got feeling bad. It said, JC, he had surgery on Monday and is home now. It went well. His throat is very sore right now because they had to move his vocal cords to get in place to do the surgery where they needed to repair. Said he will not even be able to ride in the car for 2 weeks. It's gonna be a long recovery for him.
Okay. And Hadley's not feeling well. And then Mary did not do the endoscopy today because she has that active UTI. She's still gonna do the Friday injection in the eye there. Okay. Now remember, if someone's available to take Mary on Friday.
I think she's gonna be okay. Jerry
Oh.
Donna had offered.
Oh, okay.
She's just right with injections, so I think she's okay.
Okay. And then Lisa Patterson asked for prayer for Doug. Remember her former co-worker, age 76, had the heart procedure, then had the bleeding, but it caused a stroke.
He did pass away.
Oh, okay.
On Monday, I believe. Monday or.
Doug passed away.
And, his, part of his family was there, and Lisa was with him. I believe it was merciful.
Okay.
Yeah.
The son.
His, son and his stepfather takes care of him, I think, so apparently there must be, he must be remarried.
Okay.
Somehow, but, so he was not taking care of him all the time, I don't think, I think his stepfather, so he should be okay. He probably didn't understand what happened.
Sure.
And then, remember Janet Robinson as she's visiting in Indiana, and then the traveling Murphy's back. And Ken and Nancy went to Florida. They'll be coming back, so this traveling nurse's there. And then remember Mike Levan asked prayer for his sister Anna, who has low oxygen, which affects her mental state. She's in the hospital in Virginia. And then Janet Robinson asked prayer for David's wife. She doesn't know her name, but he's a cook at the rescue mission. Remember, Janet's been volunteering down at the Chattanooga Rescue Mission that we donate a lot of stuff, clothes and stuff to. But pray for David's wife. She had an aneurysm and then she had a heart attack. She's not doing well, but David is the cook at the rescue mission. Janet said pray for his wife. And speaking of the rescue mission, remember middle of this month is when Nina said he would start bringing in the cold weather stuff, the socks, underwear, gloves. You got coats and stuff that you don't use anymore. If you want to put it on the table out here, we take that stuff, buy packages of socks or underwear, different sizes, but mostly large stuff like that.
An extra large.
An extra large. They take them down in mid-November, I think. So maybe about 2 or 3 weeks of gathering the cold weather stuff up, and then Nina and Janet or Nina and David usually run that stuff down there here in the middle of November to the Chattanooga Rescue Mission. So keep that in mind. In the back page, Karen Melton asked prayer for the trips. Stately was involved in an accident on Amnicola. Trip head on. Trip has 2 broken legs, one that was in pieces, and he went back into surgery for more surgery as a long road ahead of him. Is the other person the one that died?
Yeah, I should have taken
Okay.
out the diet. I was trying to edit that and didn't
That's
think
all right.
I had anything.
But the other car passed away, but Tripp's got a lot of injuries. He's got a long recovery ahead of him. And then remember, Jackie had asked for prayer for the wife and children of a man. She just, remember, was a former co-worker of her son, Scott, and the wife discovered her husband in their bedroom and he had taken his own life. So just pray for the wife and the children of that man. He was 51 and he committed suicide.
I got an update from Don here since.
Okay.
Don said that, there was a they met with a nurse in charge of dialysis education and she reviewed all of Sharon's records from the nephrologist. And he said that Sharon was not in any immediate need of dialysis. So they were thrilled about that. And they, are gonna meet with her and her team every 6 months, this lady that they met with, to see if anything's changed where she might have to do the dialysis, but they were so glad she doesn't have to. And then he's doing about the same, until about noon when his legs and back are gone. He's had 2 nerve blocks, but they only last a couple of days. So he says, I'm not sure where I go moving forward.
Yeah.
You know, and they didn't give me an update on Tracy, so I don't know what's going on there. But
that was an answer to prayer there. Remember, Sharon was going to do that home dialysis and she started that training, but now they're saying that she's not in immediate need of dialysis from all her accounts from her trips to the nephrologist. And then Don is doing about the same. If you heard that on, he still, once it gets to lunchtime and after lunch, he's just pretty much done. Too weak. So, and then Tracy, no update, but remember, she was having lung issues and that pending disability claim she's been fighting with the government. And then Ashton, which is Michelle and Bobo's son-in-law, remember he'd come a couple Wednesday nights. David Hadley, the wife, Michelle and Rob's daughter, is not feeling well tonight. So Ashton asked prayer for the family, the father of the 2 young children, who was one of them that was shot and killed a week or so back at that party in Ringgold, Georgia. So pray for that family. And then John and Joy God's direction in their scenic area, their business.
We have an appointment, we have a meeting tomorrow. We'll just pray that God's will be done.
Okay, meeting tomorrow. 9 a.m.
Lord's already working.
Okay. And then Phil Spencer's not feeling well due to all the chemo treatments, and his wife Amanda is sort of wanting them to discontinue the chemo treatments. But anyway, continue to pray for Phil and Amanda Spencer. And then Brian and Levy, both in the Philippines. Brian's in the hospital and receiving IVs because he's so weak as a result of all of his chemo treatments. And then Gleasy's back in the hospital receiving IVs for a UTI. Remember, they're both going through cancer treatment. So pray for Brian and his wife and Gleasy. They're in the Philippines. And then remember Pammy's friend Daniel, they possibly have bypass surgery sometime this month.
Probably gonna end up being more in November. They're still wanting to sit to
Okay,
feel a little bit.
more like November.
His foot is doing better than what the doctors expected through all that because of the infection that he had. So.
Good thing. And then remember the other friend, Bobby, that lost his wife after years of illness, and he needs prayer. So just pray for Bobby, his spiritual needs. And then Patty Morgan, that's Jackie's cousin still having blood pressure issues, and then she got diagnosed with stage 3 kidney disease. So pray for Patty Morgan. Been on our prayer list for a while. And then Lori on Sunday morning, remember a couple of Sundays ago, she was talking about her house that she's rented for years. And then that landlord was going to sell all his property, which she had got where she was going to be able to buy the house she's been in for 10 years. And they're closing in November. Now, this past Sunday, he said they're running into some issues. And she's praying for God's will in the matter because they're in negotiation about these issues with the house that she's wanting to purchase that she's lived in for 10 years. So, any others that aren't down here or need updating from this? All righty.
I did got a call from one of Paul's friends. He'd been trying to get in touch with Paul and hadn't been able to, which has not been unusual, but Mother had talked to him last week. She had to go through the nursing home to get to him because of his phone, whatever issues he's having. But Terry called me and he was asking me the same questions about talking with Paul. And I said, no. He said, well, what did you think about his sister dying? His sister died over a month ago. And when Paul talked to Mother, he has not mentioned the word, so I don't think he knows.
Oh, okay.
And hopefully it's not going to be so devastating that it's the last one of them all. You know, they were all.
That's Pam's actually been praying for that had the stroke probably a year ago or so. And then his sister just died recently. Don't even know if Paul knows that because he's in that nursing home still trying to recover from the stroke that he's had. So just pray for that situation. All right, if there's no others, Jack, great to have you back. You feel well enough to open us up in prayer, brother? All right.
Father, thank you for loving me. And thank you for loving this group right here. Father, thank you for your watch care and love for this whole church. Father, I want your love and mercy to go throughout this building. Father, thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for taking care of my kids. Watch over my pastor and his wife. Please take care of this group. For I ask it in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Jack, do you want this more comfortable chair?
No, I'm on it. I'm good. It's hurting, but
But these cloths sit.
I'm good. Not good enough, but I'm good.
All right. She's not waving at me. Hey.
Mike's not showing his picture, so hi, Mike.
That woman loves me right there.
Yes, she does.
All right.
He doesn't have everybody.
We are in Genesis chapter 32. And if we recall, we came through 31, which is right before 32. And at the end of 31, that's when Jacob has finally got the word from the Lord to leave Padanaram and head back to his inheritance land, to his father. And then he was going to run into his father-in-law chases him out of there, remember? And then they meet up, and then they have their little discussion because God came to Laban and said, you don't speak bad or good to Jacob. So anyway, when they met up, they ended up entering in their covenant. Remember, they built up a stone heap. And and had entered into a covenant and all that. Then Laban and his troop went back to their home, and now we're in Genesis chapter 32, which we started. Jacob, verse 1, Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's camp." So he called the name of that place Mahanaim, meaning two camps in Hebrew. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau, his brother, in the land of Seir, which is the country of Edom. And obviously that's what God gave that area. You can read that in Ezekiel 35, where we did a little sidebar a couple weeks back, or in Joshua 24 and other places. That is Esau. God gave Esau and his descendants Mount Seir, or the area of Seir, which and it's called Edom. So anyway, instructing them, "Thus you shall say to my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, male servants, and female servants. I have sent to tell my Lord in order that I may find favor in your sight." Because remember when he was leaving, when his mama and daddy said, "You better don't marry someone from around here. Go to Padanaram to your mother's brother." That's because after they'd done the thing with the blessing, then Esau said, "I'm going to kill that guy as soon as my dad dies." So now on the way back from there, remember he's been gone 20 years, but still he sends his troop ahead. Verse 6, and the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. He divided the people who were with him and the flocks and the herds and camels into two camps, thinking, if Esau comes to the one camp and attacks it, then the camp that is left will escape. And Jacob said, he starts praying to God, "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred, that I may do you good."
You gotta remind God what he said.
Yes. At least that's what Jacob's doing right now. He goes, "I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love." And that is the Hebrew word hesed again. Steadfast love and all the faithfulness, emet, the Hebrew, that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two camps. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me, the mothers with the children. But you said," once again, like Joshua said, he's reminding God like he doesn't know what he said. "But you said, I will surely do you good and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude." So he stayed there that night, and from what he had with him, he took a present for his brother Esau, 200 female goats and 20 male goats. That's 10 to 1. I can do quick math. 200 ewes and 20 rams. Once again, 10-1. 30 milking camels and their calves, 40 cows and 10 bulls. That's only 4-1. Then 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. That's only 2-1 with the donkeys. These he handed over to his servants, every drove by itself, and said to his servants, pass on ahead of me and put a space between drove and drove. He instructed the first, when Esau, my brother, meets you and asks you, to whom do you belong? Where are you going? And whose are these ahead of you? Then you shall say, they belong to your servant Jacob. They are a present sent to my lord Esau, and moreover, he is behind us. He likewise instructed the second and the third and all who followed the droves. You shall say the same thing to Esau when you find him, and you shall say, moreover, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he thought, Jacob, I may appease him with the present that goes ahead of me, and afterward I shall see his face. Perhaps he will accept me instead of killing me. So the present passed on ahead of him, and he himself stayed that night in the camp. The same night he arose and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, Bilhah and Zilpah, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok, which is not how that's said in Hebrew. The Jabbok means emptying. He took them and sent them across the stream and everything else that he had. Verse 24. And Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day, or the breaking of the dawn. All right, Jacob, which is the name. Remember when he had the encounter earlier with the angel of the Lord? Well, this is when he's having the encounter, I'm sorry. But anyway, Jacob is the name of the natural man, right? So he was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day, or the breaking of the dawn. That is a type of what is about to occur in that 70th week up there, the time of Jacob's trouble. Jacob was left alone, and he wrestled with a man until the breaking of the dawn. Wrestled all night in the dark, alone. This is why I say that. Verse 25, when the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, let me go, for the day has broken, or the dawn has broken. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. And he said to him, what is your name? And he said, Jacob. Then he said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, meaning God prevails. Remember, Jacob meant heel holder or supplanter. For you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. Then Jacob asked him, please tell me your name. But he said, why is it that you ask my name? and there he blessed him. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, meaning facing God, saying, for I have seen God face to face, and yet my life, Nephesh, my soul, has been delivered. So he wrestled with the man all night, but the man wasn't a man. And Jacob knew that it was. And then he said he blessed him. He said, I won't let you go unless you bless me. And then the man said, he changed his name from Jacob to Israel, David.
Why was Jacob called Esau's servant?
Well, Esau was the older. Remember, he was the firstborn. He was calling him my Lord because he was hoping that he wouldn't kill him.
That's not what I understand a servant. He really wasn't his servant. He was just his younger brother.
Well, yeah. But he was calling him his Lord. He was asking for favor, to be found favor from Esau because he had tricked him out of the blessing. So
Jacob was scared of Esau.
Correct. He thought he was going to kill him. That's what he said he was going to do before he left 20 years before. So he was at, yes.
You said that was a type of the natural man wrestling with what? The spiritual man?
No, that's the type of the coming time of Jacob's trouble. When he wrestles with God during the tribulation period and finally comes to the place of repentance.
Okay.
And then he cries out to God, and then when he looks upon the king priest, the one greater than Moses that has sent Jesus the Christ, he comes out of that and being Israel and not Jacob, the natural man. He comes out, the natural man is wounded or limping. As you saw right here, he said he touched his sock. So it says, and he blessed him. So Jacob called the name of that place Facing God, saying, for I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, limping because of his hip. So the physical man or the natural man was, therefore to this day the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh. So he understood the guy he was wrestling with to be more than a man. And that man changed his name from Jacob to Israel, and he blessed him. Remember with Abraham when he met Melchizedek, it said obviously the lesser is blessed, blessed by the greater. And so he said, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. And then he did bless him, and he changed his name from Jacob to Israel. Of course, he touched him on the socket of his hip and put his hip out of socket, and he was limping. Yes.
At that time, was the word Israel used for anything else? Was that a name?
Not that I know of.
Group? Just all of a sudden it comes out Israel.
As far as I know.
You're supposed to know. Yes.
Well. Is
it anywhere else in the Old Testament before that time?
Not that I know of.
What does it mean in Hebrew?
God prevails.
I'm done.
Genesis 32:28 is the first time that Israel is mentioned in the Old Testament. So we just read that. Then he said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. And you will see that repeated here in a second. Well, not a second. It's a little longer than a second to get there. Chapter 33. So after he has that encounter, he's left there all by himself, and he wrestled all night with a man until the breaking of the dawn. The night's always darkest right before the dawn, breaking of the dawn. Chapter 33, verse 1. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was coming with 400 men with him. Remember, God was silent about him going back to his homeland until he'd acquired all of Laban's wealth in the tithe. Just like we read in Revelation, remember the harlot woman and Israel didn't go back into the land until they had acquired all the Gentiles' wealth. And here's the type of that. Jacob is Israel, was not told by God that he could go back to his homeland until he'd acquired all of Laban's wealth, which in the type, Laban is the Gentile nations. So now we'll see Esau, who's not Israel, right? Even though he's their brother. In this instance, he's a type of the Gentile nations. We'll see that coming up. Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him. So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the 2 female servants. Who is that again? Bilhah and Zilpah. And he put the servants with their children in the front. Then Leah with her children, and Rachel and Joseph last of all. He himself went on before them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. But Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they both wept. So what will happen in that soon coming day after Jacob, the Nazarene, wrestles all night with God, and then he finally repents and he comes out, and Israel, the prince with God, the nation is born in a day. The natural man is left limping. The spiritual man, Israel, arises out of that time. And then he's a healed people, goes back to a healed land. And then what does the man of sin do? He marshals all the kings of the earth, and they come against Israel to get their wealth back. And then they're put down just like Laban, all of his wealth. And then when he went back to the land, is where Jacob's headed in the type, to his land. When they're back in the land after the Gentile world nations have been put down, Gentile power has been put down, then they will go forth as they were, part of their calling was to be evangelists to the nations, and the Gentile nations will accept Israel. What do the Gentile nations want to do to Israel now? Kill them. But in that day, they'll accept, and it says 10 men of the Gentile nations, meaning a complete number, will take hold of the skirt of the robe of one who is a Jew and said, we will go with you because we heard that God is with you. So in this type, remember, when he was leaving, his brother wanted to kill him. And now when he's coming back to the land after he'd acquired all of Laban's wealth in the type, now Esau's a type of the Gentile nation, receives him. and he's accepted by Esau. Yes.
So the Gentile nations, when that's said, in reference to those that are not Israel,
Right.
is that mostly all the nations in that area? I mean, obviously it's in the entire world, anyone not Israel. When you say Gentiles, that's really their
It's a lot of the Muslims,
relatives.
a lot of the Arabic or Muslim nations.
Yeah.
But remember way back when we started was with Genesis or Revelation. Anyway, we talked about Muslim migration. Right? Islam, and that is a pseudo religion. It's really it's a political thing. It's a political thing disguised as a religion, basically. But they're about world domination. All right. And Islam is not compatible with Western society. So as you see, the Islamists that are here in the United States, all those that we've been letting in with our open borders, do they want to assimilate to the United States of America? No, they want to have their own thing, just like Dearborn, Michigan, who has a Muslim mayor, just like Islamabad and New York, just like the places in Texas. They want to abide under their own Sharia law. They do not want to assimilate to the United States of America. They don't even like the United States.
That's true.
Why don't they just stay where they are?
Because that's not their plan. They've already taken over the UK. They've already taken over Europe, France, a lot of the Scandinavian countries that have had open borders. London and some of the other major cities in the UK all have Muslim mayors.
Nicholas said there's a lot there.
And it's
Quite a
all,
bit in Ghana.
it's all part of Hasatan's plan. As I said back in the Berean days, Mark and I both talked about Islam and all that stuff. Allah is Satan. Satan is the great deceiver, and it's just a copycat religion to, they believe some of the Old Testament, they say it's been corrupted by the Jews, and that Ishmael is really the rightful son that should have got all the stuff, and that Isaac, that all stole it. Okay. And we just talked about, remember, back in 79 when Menachem Begin, the prime minister of Israel, and Anwar Sadat of Egypt, the largest country of all the descendants of Ishmael is Egypt. And they met to do that peace treaty in 79, and it cost Anwar Sadat his life 2 years later when a captain in his own military, another Muslim, assassinated him. Because the Shiites and the Sunnis do not get along. There's no such thing as Muslim cooperation or Islam. And that's why I said, in a sense, Anwar Sadat could be a type of what happens to the coming man of sin. Remember? He dupes many in Israel, those who are back in the land now in unbelief before the time, okay, to signing the covenant of death, Isaiah calls it, the peace treaty, which begins the Daniel 7, the clock starts again on Daniel's 70-week prophecy. And his 70th week starts when the man of sin dupes many in Israel to sign that peace treaty. And then what happens later on to the man of sin? He's killed. But then he's raised miraculously. And the false prophet points remember we talked about the false Trinity in Revelation. We're going through Trinity, false Trinity. Satan being like God the Father, and then the man of sin, the Antichrist, being like God the Son, and then the false prophet being like the Holy Spirit. Remember, the false prophet points everybody to who? The Antichrist. Says, worship this dude. Right? The Holy Spirit never talks about himself. He points everybody to the Son. So you got the great deceiver. And Islam is just a copycat, and Allah, in my estimation, from what I've studied, is Satan. So yes, in the coming tribulation period, Satanism will be the religion, but that's because Islam, Allah is Satan. And really, Islam is really, they may not know what they're worshiping, but that's what they're worshiping. And that's where this Muslim migration, that's what it says in the Quran. Is it overtake places by force? Yes, David.
Well, they preach yes to the infidel.
Yes. And they're also allowed, it's okay to lie if you're lying for the purpose of spreading Islam or killing a Jew or killing an infidel.
So why would we put them in office over here in our country? It makes no sense.
Good. Hey, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
Answer that.
But I'm telling you, there's a whole lot of sleeper. There's a whole lot of sleeper cells that we're not aware of. They're already here.
So God's allowing it.
God's allowed God's allowed what you see in Europe. They're spreading all over the place. And in that soon coming day when the church hears a trumpet blast and we're blasted out of here, we're teleported.
It's all part of the plans. Yep.
Then you'll
Yeast.
see how there's an undisclosed period of time, but that's what Revelation says. It's not that, but when things start to happen, they happen rapidly.
Hey
Okay?
Jeff. Hey Jeff.
Yes.
Would that be a type of yeast?
The type
Spread it
of
all
what?
over? A type of yeast. The yeast.
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 Like leaven?
Leaven.
rising
I'm
to
sorry,
leaven?
leaven. I should have said leaven.
Yeah, that's all right. I just couldn't hear you when you said yeast, but yeah, leaven is really yeast that you put in there. Could be, but I mean, yeast does its best when we're talking about leaven in the church, or the leaven of Matthew 13:33, that the woman put in 3 measures of meal way back at the beginning of this dispensation. Remember, then in the Laodicean period of the church, the letter to the epistle to the Laodicean church, he says, I'd rather you were hot or cold, but you guys are lukewarm, and I'm going to spit you out of my mouth. And the yeast or leaven, the yeast does its best action at room temperature, lukewarm. And it's already had 2,000 years to do its damaging work, the leaven. That's an attack on the word of the kingdom in Matthew 13:33.
Now you're talking.
Now you can't separate the word of the kingdom from the rest of this book. It affects all of the, but it's a specific attack because after that first parable, Remember the parable of the soils, or the parable of the, sower, however you want to phrase it. It's really the ones being sown is the same thing in the different soils. But when the disciples asked him to explain that parable, he said, when anyone hears the word of the kingdom, they'll have those 4 different kind of responses to the word of the kingdom. And leaven does its best action, or yeast, at room temperature, lukewarm. And that's what he described in Laodicean church, which is the time we are living in right now at the end of the 6th day. That's what he told them. I'd rather you were hot or cold, but you're lukewarm, and I'm going to spit you out of my. He's talking to the church. I'm going to spit you out of my mouth. But as Joyful said, God has allowed all this to bring about his plans and purposes. See, the globalists or the deep state, World Economic Forum, whoever you want to talk about, they all think they're coming up with what they call their Great Reset in 2030. They keep throwing that year out, 2030, 2030.
You hear a lot of that in the school.
2030, okay? But whatever they think's going down, God's allowed all this to happen. Remember, he puts up rulers and takes them down, even to the lowliest of men, the prophet Daniel said, okay? But he's doing all that allows all that to bring about his plans and purposes. His plans and purposes. All right? Sovereign God of the universe. But he sent them all, he went before all of them, and then when they met, then Esau accepted him now instead of wanting to kill him. Verse 5 of chapter 33, when Esau lifted up his eyes and saw the women and the children, he said, who are these with you? Jacob said, the children whom God has graciously given your servant. He's calling himself a servant, David. Remember, and he's calling his brother Lord. But remember, he was doing it, he was sending all those ahead of him and calling him, tell my Lord, that your servant is on his way. He was doing that to appease him because he didn't want to get killed. But now they've met, and he said, then the servants, meaning Bilhah and Zilpah, drew near, they and their children, and bowed down. Leah likewise and her children drew near and bowed down. And last, Joseph and Rachel drew near, and they bowed down. So they were all given deference to Esau. Esau said, what do you mean by all this company that I met? Jacob answered, to find favor in the sight of my Lord.
He was honest.
And that is the Hebrew Adon. He was calling my Lord. Okay? But Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself. Jacob said, no, please. If I have found favor in your sight, then accept my present from my hand, for I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God.
He was really freaked out.
And you have accepted me. Please accept my blessing that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. Thus he urged him, and he took it. Then Esau said, let us journey on our way, and I will go ahead of you. But Jacob said to him, my Lord knows that the children are frail, and that the nursing flocks and herds are a care to me. If they are driven hard for one day, all the flocks will die. Let my Lord pass on ahead of his servant. He called himself his servant again. And I will lead on slowly at the pace of the livestock that are ahead of me and at the pace of the children until I come to my Lord in Seir. All right, remember that's the area of land that God gave to Esau and his descendants. So Esau said, let me leave with you some of the people who are with me. But he said, what need is there? Let me find favor in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir. But Jacob, verse 17, did he follow him to Seir? No. Jacob journeyed to Succoth and built himself a house and made booths for his livestock. Therefore, the name of that place is called Succoth, which means in Hebrew, booths. What's the seventh feast of the Jews? The feast of Sukkot, the feast of booths, the feast of tabernacles. You see the type, anti-type there? He'd acquired all of Laban's wealth. Then God told him, hey, go back to your homeland and to your father. On the way, he was trying to butter up Esau, but then Esau, a type of the Gentile nations, because he's not Israel, obviously, accepted him now, and he settled. He didn't go to Seir. He didn't follow Esau to Seir. He settled in Sukkoth, and made booths for his livestock. That's the Feast of Tabernacles, the seventh feast, which lasted 7 days and points toward a complete period of time, the complete Messianic era when they tabernacle at rest in their inherited land. So that's where he stopped. He didn't follow him to Seir. He said, hey, you go on ahead. I don't need any of your help or any of your people, and I'll get there when I get there. Then Esau left and went on back to Seir. Jacob journeyed to Sukkoth and set up booths and settled there for a while. And then it said, Jacob, verse 18, came safely to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, on his way from Paddan Aram, and he camped before the city. And from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, Shechem was also the favorite son of Hamor, the leader of that land, and Shechem was like the prince of his family. But the area was also called Shechem, which means back or shoulder blade or something, Hebrew or whatever. But he bought for 100 pieces of money the piece of land on which he had pitched his tent, and built those booths, and called it Sukkoth, or it was called Sukkoth. There he erected an altar, Jacob did, and called it El Eloah Israel. The form of Elohim. El meaning God, Elohim meaning plural gods, Israel meaning God prevails. Okay, that's what he called the altar, and that he built there. Then we have a chapter that's sort of thrown in this journey, and we'll get started in it. Chapter 34. It says, now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to see the women of the land. Remember, where did they just buy a piece of land at? In Shechem. Okay. And remember, Dinah was the only daughter that was named. Remember when Jacob was a busy man? Remember we talked about? Remember in chapter 30, verse 21, it said, remember Leah had stopped giving birth. So then Rachel got jealous because Leah was had 4 sons. So then she gave her servant to Jacob. He had two sons by that servant. Then Leah saw that, so then she got that. So then she gave her servant to Jacob. He had 2 sons by that servant. Then she did all that. Then he opened her womb again. She had 2 more sons. So she gave him 6 sons. And then it says in verse 21 of chapter 30, afterwards she bore a daughter and named her Dinah. Now he had other daughters. The only one, remember, there's nothing superfluous in Scripture. Nothing just added that's not necessary. There's nothing that's haphazard or just random in the God-breathed word. And Dinah is a proper feminine noun that means judgment. And if you drill down or dig, it goes down to a dome, which means to rule or to judge. But Dinah is a proper feminine noun. It means judgment. So just remember that here. Now, all of a sudden we've come on his whole journey. We say all that typology, type, antitype flowing through there in Jacob's journey back to the homeland. Now in chapter 34, he just bought that section of land from in Shechem from Hamor, Shechem's daddy, because it's also his favorite son is named Shechem. That's the area of land that he bought the land in. It's called Shechem. So don't get confused by that. But anyway, now in chapter 34, verse 1, Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to see the women of the land, the women of Shechem, that area. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, the prince of the land, Shechem was the prince of the land, saw her, he seized her and lay with her and humiliated her. The KJV says defiled her. The ESV says humiliated her. The NASB said he laid with her by force. He raped her. Okay, in our modern day vernacular. Okay. And his soul was drawn to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. He loved the young woman and spoke tenderly to her. So Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, "Get me this girl for my wife." Now Jacob heard that he had defiled his daughter, and that's a different, humiliated, that's up in verse 2 is the Hebrew word anah. And as they said, the KJV said defiled, the NASB said he laid with them by force. Down here it says, now Jacob heard that he had defiled his daughter. That's the Hebrew word tameh. And it's a primitive root. To befoul, especially in a ceremonial or moral sense, to defile, as the KJV, pollute, or to make unclean. Okay? So when Jacob heard that he had defiled his daughter Dinah, but his sons were with his livestock in the field, so Jacob held his peace, it says in the ESV. That's also what the KJV says. Jacob held his peace until they came. But that peace is not, what word have we been studying? If you're in 72, shalom, which comes from the root word shalom, which means to make restitution or a covenant of peace. This is harash, okay? Which more has to be, he kept silent. He didn't say anything. Okay. He kept silent until the sons came. Where were they? They were in the tending his livestock out in the field. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with him. The sons of Jacob had come in from the field as soon as they heard of it. And the men were indignant and very angry because he had done an outrageous thing in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter. But for such a thing must not be done. Really, you think? Yeah. He laid with her by force, the NASB said. He defiled her. But Hamor spoke with him, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give her to him to be his wife. Make marriages with us. Give your daughters to us, and we'll take and take our daughters for yourselves. Is that what the Israelites were supposed to do? No. You shall dwell with us, and the land shall be open to you. Dwell and trade in it, and get property in it. Shechem also said to her father, Jacob, and to her brothers, this is the prince, the son that just raped Dinah. Shechem also said to her father and to her brothers, let me find favor in your eyes, and whatever you say to me, I will give. As for me, ask for me as great a bride price, and that is the Hebrew word mohar, which has from mahar, meaning a dowry or to purchase the bride, to pay for the bride. Ask for me as great a bride price and gift as you will, and I will give whatever you say to me. He really had it in for Dinah. Only give me the young woman to be my wife. The sons of Jacob answered Shechem and his father Hamor deceitfully, because he had defiled, that's the same Hebrew word, tameh, as verse 5, defiled their sister Dinah. They said to them, we cannot do this thing. That's correct. To give our sister to one who is uncircumcised, for that would be a disgrace to us. Only on this condition will we agree with you, that you will become as we are, by every male among you being circumcised. Then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take your daughters to ourselves, and we will dwell with you and become one people. But if you will not listen to us and be circumcised, then we will take our daughter and we will be gone. Their words pleased Hamor and Hamor's son Shechem. And the young man did not delay to do the thing, because he delighted in Jacob's daughter. Now he was the most honored of all his father's house. We're talking about Shechem and Hamor, his father. So Hamor and his son Shechem came to the gate of their city. Now what went on at the gate of the city? All the governmental dealings of that city. Okay. So they came to the gate of the city and spoke to the men of their city, saying, these men are at peace with us. Now that is the Hebrew word shalom from shalom. Okay. These men are at peace with us. Let them dwell in the land and trade in it, for behold, the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters as wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only on this condition will the men agree to dwell with us, to become one people, when every male among us is circumcised as they are circumcised. Will not their livestock, their property, and all their beasts be ours? Only let us agree with them. And the NSB says, let us consent. And that's really what the Hebrew word us has more of that idea, to assent or consent to what is being asked. But agree with them. Consent to them, and they will dwell with us. And all who went out of the gate of his city listened to Hamor and his son Shechem, and every male was circumcised. All who went out of the gate of his city. Every male was circumcised. Verse 25. On the third day, when they were sore, all right, two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, who were Dinah's brothers, remember they were two of the Dinah's brothers, all right? Remember they were two of the 6 sons that Leah bore to Jacob, and Dinah was Leah's daughter, one of her daughters. So Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took their swords and came against the city while it felt secure and killed all the males. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with the sword and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went away.
All right.
The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and plundered the city because they had defiled, same Hebrew word, ameh, they had defiled their sister. They took their flocks and their herds, their donkeys, and whatever was in the city and in the field, all their wealth, all their little ones and their wives, all that was in the houses they captured and plundered. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have brought trouble on me by making me stink to the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. My numbers are few, and if they gather themselves against me and attack me, I shall be destroyed, both I and my household. But they said, the brothers, should he treat our sister like a prostitute?
No. Great.
Correct. But he took her and lay with her by force, and then they tricked them. And then when they were sore, they killed all the men and took all their stuff. And when we go on down, if we get there before we get raptured out of here, remember when Israel is laying on the bed there and he down to Egypt and he finds out that Joseph is still alive. Remember, and he's making the prophecy about all the sons. Remember what he says about Simeon and Levi. So you think all that, I'm still trying to put all that together in my head. So, I mean, just Dinah is the one that's singled out of all the daughters. And then we have chapter 34 is all taken up with whatever occurred there with Dinah being treated like a prostitute. Her name means judgment or to judge, and we have all that going on. And then Simeon and Levi kill all the males and they take all their wealth. So you continue on with that. Getting later. Chapter 35, you think, well, something's going to happen to him. Remember, Jacob even says, you made me stink from the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and our numbers are few, so they're going to come against me and we're going to be in trouble. Chapter 35, verse 1. After that occurred, again, remember, he meets Esau. Esau receives him. They follow each other, kiss. Esau said, hey, let me, come back. He said, no, you go on ahead. I'll follow you and get to you when I get there to Seir. Then Esau leaves and goes back to Seir, the land God had given to him and his descendants. Jacob goes down and sells at Succoth and builds booths or his family. Then he buys a piece of land from Hamar in Shechem, which is in Canaan. And then we have what occurs in chapter 34 with Dinah. And then at the end of that, he says, now you've made me stink to the people, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and we're going to be in trouble. And after that happens in chapter 34, God said to Jacob, remember, he was supposed to go back to see his father, right? In all these journeys. God said to Jacob, arise, go up to Bethel, the house of God, remember? And dwell there. Make an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau. Now see what he does. And that appeared is the Hebrew word ra'ah, which has the root to see. Said God appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau. So Jacob said to his household, remember what had happened when they were leaving Paddan Aram? What did Rachel do? She took Laban's household idols, which he called his gods. They were idols. But look at what he says in verse 2. So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, meaning his wives, his sons, the servants, all who were with him, put away the foreign gods that are among you and purify yourselves and change your garments. So it wasn't just Rachel that had stole Laban's household gods. He's telling everybody that's in his household, all that were with him in his household, put away the foreign gods that are among you, purify yourselves, and change your garments. Then let us arise and go up to the house of God, so that I may make there an altar to the God who answers me in the day of my distress and has been with me wherever I have gone. So they gave to Jacob all the foreign gods that they had and the rings that were in their ears. Jacob hid them under the terebinth tree that was near Shechem. And as they journeyed, guess what? Remember what he told the brothers that killed all the men of Shechem? Man, you made me odious to these people. We're going to be in trouble. As they journeyed, a terror from God fell upon the cities that were around them, so they did not pursue the sons of Jacob. When we're talking about idols, we've been talking about idols the last couple of weeks, right? And that we as Christians can have idols in our lives, right? And have to be a little figurine sitting on a shelf or a table in your house. Okay?
It's that big black box that sits in the middle of the room for me.
Turn to Joshua 24 and we will finish this Wednesday down with Joshua 24. We read this last week, maybe even referred to it the week before, Dad. Joshua 24, verse 1. Then Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem and called for the elders of Israel and for their heads and their judges and their officers, and they presented themselves before God. Joshua said to all the people, thus says Jehovah, the God of Israel. From ancient times your fathers lived beyond the river, namely Terah, the father of Abraham and the father of Nahor, and they served other gods. Then I took your father Abraham from beyond the river and led him through all the land of Canaan and multiplied his descendants and gave him Ishmael? No, gave him Isaac. To Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. To Esau I gave Mount Seir to possess it. We just saw that. Where was Esau coming from and where did he head back to? Seir. But Jacob and his sons went down to Egypt. Then I sent Moses and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt by what I did in its midst. And afterwards I brought you out. I brought your fathers out of Egypt, and you came to the sea. And Egypt pursued your fathers with chariots and horsemen to the Red Sea. But when they cried out to Jehovah, he put darkness between you and the Egyptians and brought the sea upon them and covered them. And your own eyes saw what I did in Egypt. And you lived in the wilderness for a long time. Then I brought you into the land of the Amorites who lived beyond Jordan. And they fought with you, and I gave them into your hand, and you took possession of their land when I destroyed them before you. Then Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, arose and fought against Israel. And he sent and summoned Balaam, the son of Beor, to curse you. But I was not willing to listen to Balaam. So he had to bless you, and I delivered you from his hand. You crossed the Jordan and came to Jericho, and the citizens of Jericho fought against you, and the Amorite, and the Perizzite, and the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Girgashites, and all the other ites, the Hivite, the Jebusite. Thus I gave them into your hand. Verse 12. Then I sent the hornet before you, and it drove out the 2 kings of the Amorites. Who's he talking about? Sihon and Og, the 2 giants. Remember? He goes, I sent the hornet before you and drove out the 2 kings of the Amorites from before you, and not by your sword or your bow. I gave you a land on which you had not labored, and cities which you had not built, and you have lived in them. You are eating of vineyards and olive groves which you did not plant. Now, therefore, this is Joshua talking, speaking, he said the words of Jehovah. Now, therefore, fear Jehovah and serve him in sincerity and truth. And what? This is way down after they're entering the land now under Joshua. Put away the gods which your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve Jehovah. If it is disagreeable in your sight to serve thee, Jehovah, choose for yourselves today whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served, which were beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. And this is on a lot of people's walls or little placards in your house. A lot of people, Joshua 24:15b. But as for me and my house, Joshua's talking, we will serve Jehovah. The people answered and said, far be it from us that we should forsake Jehovah to serve other gods. For the Lord our God is he who brought us and our fathers up out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage, and who did these great signs and preserved us through all the way in which we went. Then Joshua jumped down to 19. Joshua said to the people, you will not be able to serve Jehovah, for he's a holy God. He's a jealous God. He will not forgive your transgression or your sin if you forsake the Lord and serve foreign gods. Then he will turn and do you harm and consume you after he has done good to you. The people said to Joshua, no, but we will serve Jehovah. Then Joshua said to the people, you are witnesses against yourself that you have chosen for yourselves Jehovah to serve him. And they said, we are witnesses. Now, therefore, what did he say? Put away the foreign gods which are in your midst and incline your hearts to Jehovah, the God of Israel. The people said to Joshua, we will serve the Lord our God and we will obey his voice.
What are you reading at?
Joshua 24, verse 24, 25. So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day and made them a statute and an ordinance in Shechem, where we were just seeing what occurred with Jacob and the brothers and Dinah and all. And Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God, and he took a large stone and set it up there in the oak that was by the sanctuary of the Lord. And Joshua said, this stone shall be a witness against us, for it has heard all the words of the Lord which he spoke to us. That shall be a witness against you, so that you do not deny your God. Then Joshua dismissed the people, each to his inheritance. Then Joshua dies at 110 years old. Also, it says verse 31, Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who survived Joshua and had known all the deeds of the Lord which he had done for Israel. But when you go into the book of Judges, you will see after Joshua and all the elders after him passed away, what did Israel do? They forgot Jehovah. But anyway, idols, idols, idols.
So it says,
And in the New Testament, remember we just saw that in First Corinthians, and fugo, the Greek word fugo, flee. Paul says in Timothy and other epistles, flee idolatry and flee sexual immorality. What were the two things that kept tripping up the Israelites through their whole history? Idolatry and sexual immorality. And then in the New Testament to the church, Paul says in his epistles, flee, run away. And we'll see what happens with Joseph when we get into chapter 37 to 45, if we don't get raptured out of here. Flee idolatry in your life. Flee sexual immorality. Father, we just thank you for your word. We pray we have eyes to see and ears to hear. Go with us now as we depart. Bring us back safely. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Flee idolatry.
You got that?
Idolatry. Flee sexual immorality.
that's why we're not ever get that.
Oh.
Oh. Put the heat up.